Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel. In this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. Before we start talking and discussing the situation on the ground, we received more updates about redeployment process of the Ukrainian forces. The first interesting updates we received from the Vremivka tactical bridgehead. The Western deployment map shows another appearance of another brigade, airborne battalion of 25th Airborne Brigade in the vicinity of Blagodatna and Makarovka. I'll remind you that during the previous days there were very heavy clashes in the vicinity of Makarovka. This settlement changed its owner during the previous day for a few times, probably 3 times in a row, and currently the Russians are saying that because of bad weather, as a result of fierce fightings, the Ukrainians managed to penetrate the Russians' defense orders and to establish final control over the settlement, and currently Makarovka is under complete Ukrainian control. The hills on the west of this settlement are under Russian control. Furthermore, the Ukrainians made few attempts to attack the Russian positions from Novodarivka in direction of Rovnopol. Those attacks were repelled by the Russian forces, and the Ukrainians, after a complete clearing of Wagner, because this settlement was in the gray zone, and starting from the previous night, the Ukrainians completed the clearing and establishing their fortification, their positions in this area, and this morning they started pushing a little bit to the south in direction of Piryutin and Stepovo, trying to cut the supply road between Stepovo and Piryutin. Probably the next days the Ukrainians will try to make more attempts to capture these settlements on the southwestern flank of Vremivka tactical bridgehead. As you can see, there are also no fortifications in the settlements like Novozlatopol, Vishnevo and Stepovo. Probably are going to be the next target of the Ukrainians in this area. Also, the Ukrainians during the previous day made few attempts to attack the Russians in the vicinity of Staromayorsk. They were trying to advance, but all those attacks were repelled. Those were mainly the Reko in combat, and the Ukrainians were attacking in direction of Rozhayne. All those attacks were repelled. Those were Rekos in combat. The weather is not good, but probably the Ukrainians will relaunch their attempts to continue advancing in this area. Very interesting video we got from this probably from this territory, probably from the other territories. Anyway, the Ukrainians, on this video you can see how the Ukrainians are trying to avoid or prevent being bombed from the Russian drones. As you can see, when they arrive at some positions, usually the Ukrainians goes out from the trucks, lay down on the ground, and they pretend that they're dead. Using this tactic, they try to force the Russians to think that those soldiers are dead. The Russians have already called these tactics as a possum, and as soon as they see that everything is fine, they start running away from these positions. As soon as they see the drone left the territory, they start running away to another positions. And for example, in this video you see how they reach the tank, and at this area they start pretending dead one more time, that they're dead, and one more time. So this is the tactic, and this is how they're trying to avoid not being killed by the Russian drones that currently are flying above these territories that Ukrainians use for counter-offensive operation. One more time, the Russians use this call these tactics as a possum. On this video you can see how a possum tried to pretend dead in front of some bird and so on. Very interesting, very interesting. I believe that currently the Russians will fix and will change their tactics, and probably they will make a double check on the front lines before leaving this or that territory. Now we are moving to Orechov bridgehead. We got a lot of updates from this territory, from this bridgehead as well. The Ukrainians completed their regrouping and completed the creation of their forces, of their attack phase before the next offensive operation. Basically, and according to the Western deployments map, the Ukrainians moved their forces 116th Brigade in the vicinity of Orechov behind the first wave of attack that involves the forces of 65th and 47th Mechanized Brigade. Yesterday we discussed that Ukrainians redeployed 118th, and probably 118th Brigade is the second wave of attack after 128th and 115th Brigade that, according to the Ukrainian plans, should attack to the south along the Dnipro River. This 65th and this 47th Brigade 65th should attack in direction of Novopokrovka, and 47th, based according to the plan, should attack from Mala-Takmachka a little bit to the southeast, and 116th is going to be the second wave for this area, and 118th is going to be the second wave for this area. Very interesting updates are coming from Gulyai-Polya. The Ukrainians also redeployed the forces of 33rd Mechanized Brigade, and currently this brigade is located behind the main forces in Gulyai-Polya. We don't see any information about the forces in Gulyai-Polya who is going to be a part of the first wave of attack. Probably soon the Ukrainians will complete this redeployment, or 33rd Brigade is going to be the forces of the first wave. Then in this case we need to know which forces are going to be the second wave of attack in this direction. Furthermore, yesterday we discussed that Ukrainians complete regrouping of the 3rd Tank Brigade in the vicinity of Nova Nikolaevka, and probably the Ukrainians will use these tank armored fists to attack, as we discussed in the first part of this video, in direction of this salient. Anyway, we see that the Ukrainians have stretched their forces all over the front line, starting from Dnipro to Vremivka tactical bridgehead. They have enough of manpower to attack, and probably as soon as the weather is going to become better, they will launch their counter-offensive operation, trying to penetrate the Russians' defense orders and to capture as much as possible territories in this area, on this bridgehead. During the previous night, the Ukrainians made few recos in combat along the Orekhov Fort front line, but without any success and without gaining new territories or something like this. So we expect a new day. A very interesting update is came this night from Prigozhin, the head of Wagner's. He reported that the Wagners received an order. They received an order, and based on his information, Wagners are going to complete their returns by the 5th of August. So probably, and based on the timings, we understand that during the second half of June and during the July, there are going to be attempts from the Ukrainian side to penetrate their defense orders to attack in South Zaporozhye area, and probably by the end of that operation, Wagner will start creation of some kind of barrier on Belgorod area, buffer zone in this area, and based on the report of Prigozhin, this operation is going to start in the beginning of August. From the Ukrainian side, we got another very interesting video from Berdyansk. They published that the Russians redeployed their helicopter forces in this area. As you can see, there is empty line, and after that there are a lot of dots showing that the Russians have redeployed a lot of helicopters in the vicinity of Berdyansk, on the Berdyansk airport, to support Russian defense forces in the Zaporozhye area. And that's it for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.